On a tense afternoon, Han sat unsuspecting in his office as Hyup burst through the door, breathless and alarmed, urgently informing him that they were in serious trouble. On a tense morning thick with unease, Han stood frozen, eyes wide and sweat trickling down his face as he struggled to contain the shock and worry sparked by something unfolding just out of view. As shadows twisted over the looming building, Han stared up with dread, his mind racing as he wondered aloud if the unsettling truth was that Hyunkyung had been living among them all along. In a cramped apartment filled with winter's chill, Hyup's frustration boiled over as he thrust the staggering heating bill into view, exclaiming to Han how outrageous the charges had become. In a sparsely furnished room thick with discomfort, Hyup stood shivering near the closed door and remarked to Han, who lounged indifferently on the couch, that the cold was almost unbearable. In the quiet glow of a cluttered study, Hyup sifted through a stack of documents with measured calm as Han, peering nervously over the back of a worn sofa, felt a jolt of surprise when Han clarified there had never been anyone named Hyunkyung, dispelling the misunderstanding that had lingered in the air. Hyup wiped sweat from his neck, his anxious gaze betraying his concern as he remarked that they needed to save their money. As the tension lingered, Hyup calmly explained that finding Hyunkyung would bring relief but mentioned his plan to take on additional requests just in case, prompting Han to confidently observe his smart, capable approach and ask if he intended to start immediately, their discussion unfolding in the quiet office surrounded by shelves and the glow of a laptop. In a sunlit room charged with playful energy, Hyup, bold and affectionate, eagerly climbed onto Han's lap, leaving Han surprised. With Han still caught off guard, Hyup wrapped him in a gentle embrace and, with a playful glint, Han remarked that he needed a human heater since it was cold, even though Hyup always seemed to run warmer than him. Hyup pulled Han into an embrace, prompting Han to sigh in resigned acceptance and remarked that he would comply despite his reluctance. Han and Hyup closed their eyes and shared a gentle moment, as Han noted to himself that Hyup's shampoo carried a sweet scent. In a charged moment, the tension sharpened as Han's eyes widened in surprise and he urgently called out for Hyup. Han, curiosity in his eyes, asked Hyup what he thought it truly meant to crave emotional sweetness. Hyup sat in thoughtful repose, his words gently offering that seeking sweetness of heart might be the reason behind the phrase. Hyup formed a heart shape with his hands and winked, pondering aloud whether such a gesture might reveal a hidden longing for love. Bathed in the lush glow of crimson roses, Director Yoon locked eyes with Han Ishin and, wearing a captivating smile, dared him to let himself fall in love. In the midst of a shadowy, oppressive atmosphere, Han clutched his shoulders in anguish, his voice trembling as he demanded to know why anyone would speak with such cruelty. Hyup recoiled in surprise as Han clutched his head in pain, questioning why Han was shouting despite being the one who had asked in the first place. Hyup's shock erupted into a fierce demand as he pressed to know who had made such an accusation. In a cramped, dimly lit room heavy with tension, Hyup slammed his hand against the table, his voice trembling with disbelief as he demanded to know if it was truly Jigoyang, while Han recoiled in shock at the outburst. In a dimly lit room thick with tension, Han stammered out a nervous denial as Hyup, clutching his chest in frustration, demanded to know if someone other than Gaoyang was responsible. His voice faltering, Han anxiously whispered Director Yoon's name, the tremor in his lips betraying just how rattled he was by Hyup's relentless questioning. Hyup urgently questioned when the crisis began, debated whether Director Yoon was involved, and insisted they needed to stop the real threat immediately. In the dimly lit room, Han's anxious eyes darted toward Hyup as he urgently warned that blocking the other man could lead to unpredictable consequences. Han clung anxiously to Hyup and urged him to calm down, insisting with nervous encouragement that they should focus on work because, as he reminded, employers were meant to work too. Han gently embraced Hyup. Hyup instructed him to hand over the phone whenever Director Yoon called. Han sat across from Hyup, curiosity flickering in his eyes as Hyup paused his typing to pointedly ask why he had chosen to open a public prosecutor's office. In a quiet room lined with shelves, curiosity filled the air as Hyup leaned in to ask Han about his rumored past working for a company. Maintaining his calm yet serious demeanor, Han revealed to the somber room that the company had gone bankrupt, his words settling heavily between them as Hyup listened in growing concern. Hyup asked if Han had been the boss in the past, prompting a calm denial. In response, Han leaned back with a calm smile, explaining that while his position had seemed important, it mostly served as a safety net, prompting a thoughtful silence from Hyup as the reflective mood lingered between them. On a quiet afternoon tinged with curiosity, Han hovered his fingers above the laptop keyboard, contemplating a question about his parents. Han admitted in a low voice that it had been some time since his parents had passed away. Han and Hyup sat close together on the couch, the air between them thick with unspoken seriousness as Hyup admitted with earnest sincerity that he felt the same way, forging a moment of profound mutual understanding. Hyup confessed about growing up in a facility, where memories of kindness and gentle people still lingered. In the soft glow of the living room, Han reflected calmly on his past health struggles and college graduation while Hyup, sprawled beside him on the sofa, teased him about his newfound fitness, remarking with a laugh that he sounded like an old man. In the quiet aftermath of conversation, Han sat contemplatively, a flicker of surprise in his eyes as he realized that despite 2 years working alongside young Hyup, this was the first time he had heard him share such intimate details of his past. In the quiet stillness, Han gazed inward with a calm, pensive expression, admitting to himself that he had rarely spoken of his own past and recalling moments when, despite knowing Hyup was a good man, he could not help but harbor doubts. In the quiet glow of the evening, Han sat beside Hyup with a gentle smile, reflecting on how they've always leaned on each other despite knowing so little, and offered to stay close when he sensed his boss's discomfort. In the warm glow of a casual evening, Hyup offered a friendly smile as he shifted the conversation toward Han, asking with genuine curiosity about the company where his boss had once worked. Han gazed upward, his expression thoughtful as he explained that he had chosen to switch to the public prosecutor's office because he believed it would quickly provide the information he sought, revealing the calculated reasoning behind his career move. On a threadbare couch beneath muted light, Han leaned forward with curiosity while Hyup, lounging beside him, let out a confident laugh and warned that seeking too much information could be dangerous. Hyup leaned his head gently on Han's shoulder, his voice filled with tender concern as he confessed he didn't mind being hurt if only Han would open up to him. In response, Han grasped Hyup's hand with a reassuring smile, admitting he worried about being left alone with all the work if Han got hurt, then quickly softened the moment with a playful remark to ease the tension between them. In a room charged with curiosity and unease, Hyup imagined a darker version of Han against a blood-red backdrop as Hyup asked about company photographs and Han calmly replied that there were none, insisting he hadn't changed at all. Han sat in stillness, his calm gaze fixed forward as a quiet sense of reflection settled over him. In the muted glow of a dimly lit room, Han sat alone in contemplative silence, the weight of unspoken thoughts settling heavily around him. Han broke the silence by asking if Hyup is familiar with the Highlander syndrome. As strands of DNA shimmered around the glowing silhouette, the explanation followed that this rare condition halts cell aging and growth, leaving one forever appearing as they did at 16. Under a bleak sky where barren branches stretched overhead and a single leaf drifted downward, a somber voice reflected on how, despite reassurances, those afflicted by this disease were said to rarely see their 30s. In the gentle hush of a quiet evening, Han and Hyup sat close, hands entwined, their expressions softened by gratitude and the unspoken relief of having endured together. As the dim light pressed softly around them, Han revealed in a somber tone that only his parents and Jinte had ever known, but with those loved ones now gone, he confided to Hyup that the only person he had left was him. On a quiet afternoon, Han and Hyup sat together, their faces shadowed with concern as Hyup wondered aloud about Jinte's fate, on recalling how earnestly Jinte had tried to heal him after the accident. In a quiet room bathed in soft light, Han sat with a thoughtful expression, his calm resolve settling in as he admitted to himself that he had chosen to simply live as he was. In response, Hyup met his boss's gaze with a calm, appreciative look, expressing gratitude for the courage it took to be honest with him. In the dimly lit room, Hyup stood with his gaze lowered, his somber expression betraying the weight of a secret he was finally ready to share, moved by his boss's earlier honesty. Hyup sat closely beside Han on the couch, his calm demeanor barely concealing the weight of revelation as he quietly admitted that Director Yoon and him already shared a history. In the shadowy stillness, Han's eyes widened in shock, his tense expression revealing the weight of unexpected news that shattered the silence. As Hyup lowered his gaze, troubled by the revelation, Han pressed him with a pointed question, prompting Hyup to admit in a strained voice that they both came from the same facility. In the muted glow of the living room, Han and Hyup sat side by side on the couch, tension thick in the air as Han, his voice edged with suspicion, pressed Hyup to reveal whether Director Yoon had been the reason for their connection.